afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me on Hashtag No Limits. Hashtag No Limits is a show about people who society has placed limits upon, but who have busted through those limits. That is no easy task. Ophelia says in Hamlet, we know who we are, but not who we will become. And I believe that to be 100% true. And I also believe that there is no better example of that than the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. The caterpillar literally dissolves itself into its cells, and then it has to reform into the butterfly. And then, as if that wasn't enough struggle, it has to struggle to get out of the cocoon in order for its wings to be strong enough to fly. That is not an easy task either. And I so appreciate people like Dr. Maria Cleary, my guest today, because she stands in so many roles. She has been a supportive role as an administrator, as an educator, as a parent, and now she has an app that she has developed, and we're going to talk about all of those things today. And so, Dr. Cleary, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm fine. It's my great pleasure to be here, Shelley. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to dive in. So tell the audience a little bit more about yourself than what I gave them.
Well, as you said, I wear multiple hats. I am an interim school superintendent, although I certainly have avoided being that during the past year or so, schools being a very difficult place to navigate right now, and I feel just terrible about it. I have been a teacher, and I have done a lot of media work, but the most important role that I have is as a parent. I have 4 children, 3 biological sons and an adoptive daughter from Bulgaria who has a disability. And they are all adults right now. Desi, my daughter, is a young adult, and she has been the inspiration for my work with Read Eezy. Desi went to public school from when she was 3 years old. She was in a preschool disabled class, and we kept her in public school till 8th grade. But I will say that, around middle school, which for us starts in 6th grade, we started to see that the schools themselves did not seem to have adequate resources to meet her needs. Now, we know every child with a disability is different.
Sure.
And so we have to all check out and be very involved in our schools to see that they have and are tackling our children's disabilities in a way that's effective. Problem with Desi is that she's multiply disabled. I mean, in that she's not physically disabled. She does have epilepsy, but she can run and play and, jump and all those other things. Right. But her cognitive disability is just profound, more than delayed in just about everything. And what we found out in public school, they didn't even have the materials to accommodate her. We found, especially in reading, that they were having her read books, and the way they would accommodate her is not to change the book, but to change how slowly she read it.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't sound very appropriate.
It's silly. My favorite story is when we went to a parent conference during that time, her teacher, very, very sweet lady, who was her reading teacher, said, Mrs. Cleary, you would be very proud of Desi. She is reading Hatchet. Now, Hatchet is a typical middle school book that they've been reading, since the dawn of time. And it's about a boy who gets in a private plane crash, and he's the lone survivor, and survivors out in the wilderness. And it's not, the concepts aren't easy, the right. Vocabulary isn't easy. And it's a middle school book that maybe middle schoolers who read on grade level can enjoy. But I just looked at this teacher and I said, I appreciate what you're saying, but Desi is not reading Hatchet. I mean, maybe she's following along, but
Right.
she's not doing that. And, the reality of it was that this school, and just about every school, does not have even one book that is written on grade level for very challenged readers, that they can enjoy because the story is age respectful, but the vocabulary and reading levels are appropriate for them. And so in 8th grade, we kind of moved her out of public school and she went into a private special education school. And we have a lot of hesitation about that because we were worried about role models and that kind of thing. But she loved it there. She really did love it there. And I would say socially, it was a great gift for her because there were plenty of people like her and plenty of people even more disabled than she, but she loved them and they all loved each other. And so in that regard, it was wonderful. Did she learn how to read any better? No. I mean, she didn't. And she was there from 9th grade until she was 21.
Wow.
So we tried all kinds of interventions. We tried fast forward. We tried different Linda Mood Bell. She's in a brain training program right now. Yeah, her reading has improved some, but she still says to me the thing that she initially said when I said, Des, why don't we read more? And she said to me, I can't. She said, reading makes my brain hurt. And it did. Like I could see from her face, she would read and her face would get all scrunched up, and it was because it was a horrible chore for her.
Right.
And we're still looking. Just this Christmas, we got her 2 books that have very short chapter stories in it. In fact, one is for younger children, but it happens to be the Peanuts characters, and they're 5-minute stories. So I thought, well, Peanuts can be for, any age.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I decided to try that. She hasn't picked it up once on her own. I mean, I'll sit and read it with her. But, at some point we parents say, when are we going to stop having to do this? When are our children going to realize that they can sit and enjoy a good book and it can pass the time? Now, we can all say this even about our regularly developing children. I don't think that I think there are parents sitting there saying, I can't get my 16-year-old to pick up a book to save my life.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's kind of a challenge in a different way, because these young people are not only having the regular challenge of all the electronic distractions and other distractions that all of our kids have, but they have the challenge that they just can't do it and there's nothing for them to read. So, that's when I started Read Eezy, and I started it. I mean, you want to talk about being tenacious. I can't believe how long I've been at this. I think I started it 7 years ago with a little teeny beta version of it. And now we have 1 book out. Our 2nd book should be out in about 2 weeks. Our 3rd book is in the pipeline. And I'm hoping that by mid-year or so, we should have 5 or 6 books in our library. And basically what makes these books different is they are illustrated, which we have found is critical. These young people need pictures. It's as simple as that. They have a very difficult time creating pictures from abstract concepts. Mm-hmm. So, if we read something that says the girl walked out the door with her dog and, walked down the street and saw trees and flowers, and, we have no problem picturing that.
Right.
Our disabled kids cannot do that.
Exactly.
They can't. There's no pictures in their heads. So they need for someone to show them a picture, especially if the concepts are more complicated, because, now they're getting older and they want to read about more complicated things. They want to read about the same things that other people their age want to read, romance and sports and science fiction and, stories about interesting people. But if they don't have pictures, they're not going to be able to understand that. So these books are illustrated. They have a little bit of animation in it, and they have interactive checks for understanding. So this is another thing with
nice.
special ed young people. What we have all learned as educators and as parents is that our kids forget things very quickly. They could read 4 or 5 pages, and then if you go back and you say, oh, you remember who that person is, or what did that person do back in the, they look at you and they say,
right,
I don't know.
Yeah.
So someone needs to check with them to make sure that they're continuing to get it as they're going along. So we have like these little gaming questions, nothing complicated because we don't want them to get so distracted by the game, but little gaming questions that will help them to recall what they've read. And the books, we've tested it. We've, gotten some wonderful results. We've sent it out to schools and teachers, and so far things are very positive. But until we have a library to put out there, we're not going to really be able to see what parent and especially reader response is going to be. So we did do a little bit of a market research survey and got like an enormous percentage of the people who we surveyed saying they would be interested in learning more about this. And they were alarmed at how little their children were reading. So, we think that this all bodes well. We'll see. But it doesn't stop us from being worried that our kids don't read. I mean, employers right now say that just for regular applicants coming on the job, or, either that they're trying to hire or they're newly hired, that they are lacking in basic skills.
That's incredible. I was in attendance at a workshop recently that you presented, and you had said that then, and I wrote that down because I just was shocked. I was, but I wasn't. I guess there was the hopeful side of me that didn't want that to be the case, but at the same time, I kind of in the back of my head presumed that was probably the case. But to hear you actually say that was just, wow, scary.
Well, I'll tell you a little thing that absolutely boggled my mind. One of my sons went to law school, but he subsequently went to work at a hedge fund. Okay. So a lot of his colleagues went to Harvard and Yale and, Wharton, got all their MBAs in all these fancy places. And he said to me, Ma, you would not believe this, but when it comes to writing a report or anything that involves putting more than a couple of words together, they give it to me to do because I went to a place where they made us write. All these other guys came from places where they got MBAs, and all they had to do was PowerPoints, with little short sentences and graphics. And he said, I'm the only one who had to write anything when I went to school. And these are these are off the charts bright people.
Right.
So reading and writing, language arts in general, is getting to be, how about this, a lost art.
That is incredibly sad. And we could delve into, because I like to research and you like to research, and, just our years of experience, the why behind things. And, we could certainly go off on a complete tangent about, why that is.
Right.
But it's certainly true. I think about even my own daughter. She just graduated college last month, and she had to write for her final project a 10-page paper. And it was she didn't get her degree in education. She earned 2 majors in English and 1 in history. So of course, because she has an English major, she
Right.
was going to have to write more. But I just think about, how little we do actually require students to sit down and put thoughts together.
Absolutely.
And write anything beyond a couple of paragraphs. It's sad. There's a part of me that understands it, because we are in such a digital age, and we have learned in a lot of instances that oral communication and getting your point across is mostly how the world works. And so we've kind of put the physical aspect of writing to the side, because in today's world, it doesn't get as much play as what verbal communication does. But so, yeah, it is unfortunate that it seems to be a lost art.
But I'll tell you, you talk about oral communication. I taught a speech course in a state university near here. And I asked my students to outline their speeches ahead of time, because, how can you speak in an organized fashion if you couldn't do an outline? There wasn't one person in my class of almost 30 students who could write an outline. They had never, ever been taught. So all of those skills, those language arts skills, are being lost. And this goes back, and sort of fosters this belief that they have that, the written word is not important.
Right.
And all we need to do is just quick type something on our computers or on the phone.
Right. Yes.
A skill which is lost on me, let me tell you. I do not have that talent. I mean, I do it, but I do it like this.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And my kids just laugh at me. But I think that there are times when you just simply need not only need more sophisticated word skills, but you should want them, because what better joy is there, when it's snowing outside and you can't go anywhere, to sit with a good book and just get lost in it. I always think of this one quote from a song from a long time ago. It's called "Look What They've Done to My Song," and there's a line in it that says, "If I could I wish I could find a good book to live in. If I could find a real good book, I'd never have to come out and look at what they've done to my song."
That is so true, though. Yeah. And I mean, it goes back to what you said before. And I took a couple notes here when I was looking down. That's what I was doing, was writing some things that I wanted to come back to. Speaking of songs, there's the song that video killed the radio star. And video and graphic images have killed reading and the ability to picture things on our own.
Mm-hmm.
That whole visualizing that you were talking about with your Read Easy books. you talked about your daughter doing the Linda Mood Bell program, or LIPS is what I used to refer to it. And that was a program that I used with many students, and the visualizing, verbalizing aspect of it, teaching children how to picture things in their minds.
Yes.
Because even, I mean, I've been out of teaching 4 or 5 years now, but, even early in my career, of course, we've had television now. There isn't a child alive today that didn't have television.
Right.
And, so we've not had the privilege to develop our imaginations anymore.
Yes.
Kids, they can't drive in a car for more than 5 minutes without having that device in their hand, or a TV video screen where they're watching something. And I can remember going on trips and just imagining, what's going on at that house, or what's going on, there, or just being, the horrible word, bored. Oh, I was bored so much.
Yes.
But heavens, if we let a child be bored now, and we don't give them electronic things to keep them entertained, they don't, we made our daughter be bored. Because no, you have to be bored sometimes.
Figure out something to do, right?
Exactly. And thankfully, whether that has anything to do with our parenting or not, she is an avid reader. She loves to, and which also lends to why she has an English degree. But, it was just incredible to me to watch that evolution of going from, being able to think on her own to having all of these images displayed for her. I mean, how many times, and I don't hear people say this anymore. So I'm wondering how like when this switch happened, where we used to say, oh, the book was so much better after seeing a movie based on a book.
Yes.
I don't hear people say that anymore. I don't even think people realize, right. I don't even think people realize that the majority of movies are based on books.
I know.
Or at least they used to be. Maybe they're not anymore, but.
And the book is always better.
and I used to say that is true because my imagination visualized it differently.
Yes.
And so that was what I had in my head and thought should be the way it should be on the big screen. But the directors and the producers of the movie had their own versions, and that's what was up there. But I didn't like that version because it didn't match mine.
The only book I ever thought was exactly the way I pictured it when I read it was Gone with the Wind.
Oh, that is so funny because I did not know that about you, but that is exactly the book I was thinking of.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
And I thought, yes, that's Scarlett O'Hara. Yes, that's Rhett Butler. This works.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And it's like I said, we could go on a whole different tangent, but this is hashtag no limits. And I want to talk about your daughter and the limits that had been placed upon her.
I wanted to just pick up on something you said, which I think is so important about how your daughter turned out to be a reader. So I have 4 children. Okay. And, 3 of them have the same parents,
right?
The same set of genes, essentially,
right.
And one of them is a voracious reader. One of them hates reading. I mean, hates it. Reads if he has to, but just hates it. One of them really didn't read much until Harry Potter was written. And then, went through that whole series like 4 times and read it. And now we'll read books that are kind of on that theme, but doesn't really pick up a book much except for the ones he wants his 4th graders to read. And that, that's fine. That's fine.
Right.
And he even has a Harry Potter book club for his 4th graders. So that, that works out well. But my point is, and I think it's important for us as parents to realize this, that kids have different sets of genes when it comes to reading. And some of them are going to be the dream children who are going to love it like your daughter. and my oldest son. However, some of them are going to have difficulties, and their difficulties are never really going to be diagnosed. Like my second son, the one who hates to read, yells at me today, even though he's in his 30s, and he says to me, Ma, I have a learning disability. I have what does he think he has? I forget what. But you never had me tested for it. And I said, Greg, we were an auditory processing problem. That's what he thinks it is. And I said, Greg, we weren't doing that back when you were in elementary school, or if they were doing it for kids who were profoundly disabled, not for kids who were just average students, which he was, and I should have recognized it. And of course, I'm very guilty for that. I didn't. But perhaps had we known about these things back then, I would have been able to help him with, or the school might have been able to help him with his processing problem. Same with my third son, who has a version of ADD without the H and kind of goes off into the stratosphere and has a terrible time, like just focusing. Has a wonderful imagination, but unfortunately his imagination kicks in about things other than what he's reading. Yeah. So would there have been a way that maybe we could have handled that better? Yeah, we didn't know about these things when they were growing up, and especially when they were little. So I guess my point is how important it is right now for parents who see that their kids are not quite doing the way they wish they would in school, to stay on top of it with their teachers and not feel like, oh, this teacher's going to think I'm a pest, or, oh, this teacher is going to take it out on my kid if I say that, I'm not happy with what is happening in school. No, first of all, there are some teachers who are very open to hearing what parents have to say. Second of all, even if they're not, too bad. And I'm saying this as a teacher, and as an administrator. I welcomed people coming in and saying, my kid is just not getting this. And we just didn't know until the parents said it.
Right.
So I encourage parents to stay really, really involved. And I know we don't have time, and I know we're juggling 1 and 2 and sometimes 3 jobs and multiple children and houses and bills and all those things. But I wish I had done more, is I guess all I'm saying.
Well, and I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay.
You said that 3 of your children have the exact same parents. And I understand that biologically, but they didn't have the exact same parents, in the sense that when your first was born, he was an only child, and you were brand new parents. Sure. And so how you did things with him versus when the second one came along, you'd had some experience at parenthood by that point. You were a little bit older, so you had more life experience. You had some more knowledge about things. So how you parented was different, even though you didn't intend it to be. And then by the time the third one came along, now you were like experts at this. You had,
No, we barely parented at all by the time the third one came along. Don't play with your brothers.
Yeah, well, and that's so. And I think it was Dr. James Dobson that I had heard that from many, many years ago, that, we no matter how many siblings are in a family, you still don't have the exact same parents. Because, again, not only do you have different experiences and how they fall in line, but their personalities are different. I don't have this joy of, I've only been blessed with one child, and for various reasons. And so, I can say these things, but I haven't experienced these things. But I have certainly seen it in my friends and in my family, how they have raised each of their children that they have had.
Yes. And I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, certainly that comes into play. Every birth order is a huge determinant of who you turn out to be. I mean, and I can see it in my kids. I guess I am only saying that I wish that I had been more aware that they were dealing with different things as they were growing up.
Yeah.
That I just didn't either know how to handle or wasn't really aware of how to handle. And I said things like, well, go read the book anyway, which was crazy. I mean, and I used to do things with them, but I should have done more. You know, you know, that's just me. I mean, I used to put on puppet shows with them. We used to write books together. We used to do it. But perhaps there was a way, and I guess this is why I'm saying stay in touch with school. There's a way to deal with auditory processing or ADD or focusing, that kind of thing, that they could have been doing in school had it been brought to their attention. So
yeah, and I, again, I've only had one, and so, you know, I'm not speaking from experience, but Maya Angelou has a saying, and I usually don't say it correctly, but it goes something along the lines of, we know, we do what we know until we know better, and then we do better. And I think almost every parent, even myself with just the one, you know, now that she's graduated college, and I look at my nieces and nephews and how I interact with them, and I'm like, oh, why didn't I interact that way with my daughter when she was growing up?
Yeah.
You know, so I think we all, as we look back, probably have that, oh, I could have done more. I never did puppet shows with my one. So the fact that you were doing puppet shows and you had 3, I mean, I just, you know, I think that's just a thing.
Well, and you're right. You're right. And we can always be better. And I guess one of the joys for my life with doing Read Easy is I'm taking a lot of what I learned, not just from being a teacher and not just from being a school administrator, but also from being a parent of, you know, 4 very different kids, and trying to dump it into what we're doing with Read Easy and saying, well, I know this works, you know, let's try this. And what we're finding is, from the initial testing we're doing, is that it does work. And I just want to be able to share it with more people. So, I mean, my dream with Read Easy, we started not just the company itself, but we started a not-for-profit organization. And my dream is to collect enough donations. And we have started. Some people have been very generous, given us donations, but to collect enough donations that we can eventually, down the line, have a free library that people can visit like the regular public library. And just, there'll be scads of books there that have pictures, that have all kinds of different stories, and they all have text to speech in them if you need that, and different options that you can kind of choose as you go ahead. But somewhere where they can, as we said, you know, go and find a book to live in.
Yeah. So while you're mentioning that, and I want to make sure that I included this anyway, so now is a good time to do that. So for someone who wants to find Read Easy to use it, or as you just mentioned, if somebody wants to make a donation, and I was thinking too, I know I have a niece, and then I have a couple of cousins who are graphic designers. You know, so what kind of people do you need to help make that dream come true? Would you look for volunteers to help that kind of thing happen?
Oh my goodness. I would be thrilled with volunteers. I mean, right now, to do each book, we need writers, you know, and I wrote the first 2 books. The first one I wrote with my son, who's the fourth grade teacher with good imagination. The second one I wrote on my own, but the third one I sort of put out the clarion call and got a wonderful writer who's working very inexpensively, who's just putting the final touches on our third book. But we're in need of writers, and it doesn't have to be a writer that is, who writes novels for a living. These stories are about 3,500 words. They've usually come down to about 4 short chapters. And the subject matter just needs to be something that is appealing to adolescents and teens. Now, we're looking for a couple of different kinds of books so we can sort of fill in the initial set that we're offering. The first ones we did were more on the social emotional learning category. So they were about bullying or feeling alone or feeling different and that kind of thing. The third book is the start of a little series we want to do, which deals with workforce trades. So we feel that a lot of young people who are in this situation where they have some kind of learning disability may not feel that they have the wherewithal to go off and do a traditional college course of study and might want to do something else with their lives, but they're not aware of how many trades there are that perhaps they could go into. So this third book that we have introduces through a fictional story, the trade of automotive engineering, just car fixing and more than that. And this whole series, there might be 3 or 4 books in the series called The Fixers, is a whole bunch of young people who have by accident or otherwise become apprentices in different trades, plumbing, carpentry, culinary arts, that kind of thing. And then the third category I'm looking for are either biographies or fictional stories, but are about people who have overcome adversity. And it doesn't have to be a disability. In fact, I'm almost preferring it's not a disability because there's research that shows that disabled kids don't like to read about disabled kids, which is, yeah. But there's a lot of adversity that you can overcome,
Absolutely.
And still come out, on the other side in a good way.
Right.
So that's the third thing. But then, we're open to all kinds of stories that people would like to write who they think would be interested. So we are paying our writers, but not very much, but we are paying them. Illustrators, we are paying our illustrators, but again, not the going rate. But I feel like if people are doing this extensive work, we want to pay them something, So we're looking for those people, and we also are looking for people who do voiceovers, because right now we're doing all our text to speech in human voices, which is so much better, I think. Although they are improving the text to speech technology now, and sooner or later we might be able to take advantage of that. But right now we're using human voices. So somebody who do voiceovers. So anybody who would like to either volunteer or would be willing to work below scale in any of those roles can reach me at maria@readeezy.com, Maria @readeezy.com, which is on the bottom of your screen. And then the other thing is, of course, they can go to the website. There's a donate button on the website that'll take you right to our not-for-profit, which is readeezyliteracy.org, and you can make a tax-deductible donation.
That's awesome. That is very exciting. And as I'm listening to you, just like when I listened to you at the workshop previously, prior and previously. I was trying to make that into one new word. And I don't know what it was going to come up with, but it wasn't going to be good. I'm thinking I want to be involved in this somehow.
We would love it.
I know you have my book, and
I do.
And I don't know if
a wonderful book too. You did an excellent job on the book, and it's so nice to see stories that are real. I think that's what people enjoy about that kind of book most. It's not just theorizing; it's reality.
Right. Well, thank you for those kind words. That's not why I brought it up, but because I appreciate the kind words. And yeah, I mean, I can say I am a published author, so that might add a little credence to my application to write for you. But yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in. I will definitely be searching that out, and because of my book, I have met other authors now, and so I will be sure to let them know about your program and what you're doing, and have them tune in. And hopefully, I can get my video editing person to maybe just cut out this little snippet, and I can use it as little advertisements or something, and help us both, because I truly believe what you're doing is fantastic work and is definitely needed, and I so appreciate you talking about it today. But I want to put Read Easy to the side.
Well, can I say just one thing, because this might be helpful to people who are interested? On readeasy.com on the home page, if you scroll down to the bottom, there is a sample of the first book, and anyone who's interested in writing or illustrating or narrating can see what we've done so far.
Oh, that's perfect.
And this might give them an idea if they're interested in pursuing it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Let's move on to what you wanted to talk about.
Okay, I want to talk about your kids. Now, originally, I was thinking we were going to talk about Desi and the limits that Desi has busted through. But now you have alerted me to the fact that 2 out of your 3 boys potentially have disabilities as well. And so I just want to talk about all 3 of them and the types of limits that were on them and that they have busted through. Talk about how successful they are in life today. I mean, you've already mentioned that your 3rd son is a teacher. Your 1st son was a lawyer, now works for hedge funds. I don't remember if you said what your 2nd son is doing.
Okay. He's a phys ed teacher.
Oh, perfect. All right. So, I mean, they're successful, they're living, and that in itself, to be perfectly honest, and it is one of the reasons that has spurred me to do this show and to write the book, is that people have a very negative attitude as far as possibilities for people with learning disabilities or any eligibility, to be perfectly honest.
Absolutely.
And those limits are, well, you're never going to go to college. You're never going to get a job. You're never going to live independently. You're never going to, or I should be putting this in the words of my book, you can't do this and you can't have a happy life, and you can't, get married or find a spouse or drive a car or all of those things. And you have great examples of all of those things being untrue.
Absolutely. And the thing of it, the sad thing about it is that young people who have more debilitating disabilities, we give up on them in high school. I mean, literally give up on them. We start teaching them how to become baggers at ShopRite, and how to become, how to sort things at a factory. We don't teach them, well, let me see if you have computer skills and if you could do things on the computer. Let me see what other skills you might have that's usable in the workforce. Like, my daughter loves animals, all right? She's a real animal whisperer. Could they have taken her to her special ed school did do this, to like a dog daycare place or a veterinary place? Now, no one ever did that. They said, oh no, she can't handle that. She couldn't possibly be a vet assistant. Why?
Right. You don't know until you try.
Yeah, she could clean up poop in a doggy daycare center, but she couldn't be a vet assistant. Maybe if somebody had taught her how to do that. So I think, with all of my kids, the secret has always been have expectations. You know, you have to have expectations, and you don't. My kids still get mad at me for this because they say, we were never enough, Ma. Well, you were smarter than what you had aspired to. So
Yeah, you saw more potential than they did.
Exactly. I always used to tell my kids, forgive me for mixing a little religion into this, but there's a parable in the New Testament. It's called the parable of the talents. And this guy was given talents, which were coins back then. And I guess 3 people were given coins back then. And one of them went out and spent them. One of them buried them, and one of them kind of invested them in things that, went forward. And Jesus, because this was his story, came out and yelled at the first 2 of them and said, you are worthless fools. I gave you these so that you could use them to do more. And it was only the 3rd person who had used it to do more who was the virtuous person. So I used to tell my kids this story all the time. I said, you don't want to be a worthless fool.
And it doesn't sound like any of them are. So
no, I'm knocking wood as I'm talking to you. But we also want my daughter to work to her fullest potential. So that's why, when she was little, nobody thought she would even ever talk. She came to us from Bulgaria. She couldn't say a word. And we thought it was the language difficulty, but they told us it was the disability. And we just kept working with her, and she's extraordinarily fluent now, And even writing and reading, she can read beyond. She has something called left brain hemiatrophy, which means that her, when she was either born or maybe in utero, she had some kind of stroke, some kind of vascular event. And it prevented the left side of her brain from developing. And so when you see it on an MRI, you can see that the left side of her brain is this big and the right side of her brain is this big.
Oh, wow.
And when the neurologist first looked at it without meeting her, she said to us, I didn't even know if she'd be able to walk, an in-skip Desi. And she has defied all expectations since then. But I just think because she lived with a house full of brothers and parents who had those expectations of her. And so she did it. And we still want her to do it. Post-pandemic, I don't want her to clean tables anymore. I really want to try to find her a job that is going to be more challenging. And I want to find her some training that's going to, make her eligible to do something more with her life. And so all of them, despite their disabilities, and my first son had the disability of being brilliant. That sounds asinine, but he was sort of off the chart brilliant. And if any of us have encountered people like that, that it's not always all a gift,
Yeah.
It can bring with it a lot of challenges. And yet all of them, and they still do work on it, are working with what they were given, and they are succeeding. And I feel very proud of them. And I feel proud of anybody I meet and I meet a lot of them. Through my daughter, we meet so many, she's very involved in Special Olympics. And so we meet a lot of special needs young people and parents. And a lot of them have accomplished incredible things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, again, the reason for the book, which for anybody who doesn't know, I just so happen to have a copy right here. It's called Those Who Can't Teach,
which
True
is a
Stories
great
of
title.
Special Needs yeah, thank you. Religion comes into play here because I really feel like this title came to me from God. It was not the title that I originally thought of on my own. And I was praying about it one night, just, like the whole book in general. And I felt like God asked me, why don't you as a teacher like the saying, those who can do, those who can't teach? And I responded with, well, because it always made me feel less than as a teacher, that every other profession was better than mine, or otherwise I would have chosen that one. And he said, that's how the people in your book feel. And he said, and how much have you learned from your students and their families over the years that you've known them, and the families that you knew outside of teaching? And I have learned, I feel, as much, if not more, about what truly matters. And because of the families that I worked with. So that is where the title comes from. So thank you.
Great. Well, my middle son feels even worse about that, because the rest of that goes, those who can do, those who can't teach, those who can't teach phys ed.
Teach PE. Yeah. Yeah. And I
we always tease him about that.
Yeah. I interviewed last year, not last year, in 2020, I can't say last year anymore, and it still be that year, a PE teacher, a coach. And yeah, he said, the same thing. It's either you're a PE teacher or you coach. So
yes.
So, but anyway, so I appreciate that. And I mean, it's just their life is full of lessons in everything that we do. And we do have, and I don't know that it's necessarily bad, but I think it becomes bad when we become fixated on education when we're teaching is the be all to end all that needs to be known. And it isn't. I mean, there's so much more in life. Every person is so much more than the grades they received in school.
And I think all we want to do as teachers is give them the best chance that we can give them at life success, whatever that is for them. Just provide them with all the tools we can think of and say, okay, now I know I've done my job. Go out there and go get them, and then hope that they meet all kinds of people who are going to support them along the way.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very, very nicely said too. Well, we have just a couple minutes left, and I want to give you opportunity, if you want to brag on your children some more, if you want to talk more about readeezy.com, if you want to talk about, what made a good teacher in your experience, because we really didn't talk about, you as an administrator and as an educator. So if there's just anything that you want to let us know before we do need to wrap up, now is your opportunity.
Well, what I do want to say is that all of us at home can be good teachers for our children. And I think that when I, as an administrator, would walk into a classroom, I would know inside 2 minutes whether a teacher was a good teacher or not. And essentially, it's because the kids were engaged and the teacher was communicating well. So we knew right away what he or she was trying to teach, and the kids were paying attention to it and they were enjoying it. And I think that we as parents can help that to happen at home by looking at the best things that have happened to our kids in school, or the things that our kids respond to well at home, and trying to make that happen in our teaching of them. So maybe if our kids can't read well at home, but they enjoy reading aloud, or having somebody read aloud to them rather, and we can't sit and do that all the time, maybe recording a book or having someone else record a book for you that they can sit with and listen to that book as they go along. Or maybe, if you know what the book is about, finding some pictures along the way, especially if it's a biography or something, where there actually are pictures of the person who's being written about, and use those teaching tools to help your kids succeed at home. Now, I'm not saying you have to be a nut like me and put on a puppet show, but but it did help, even a little bit. Or we used to, even when they were little, write books on our own and make like lift the flap books, or that kind of thing, where there would be a little adventure to it. And it just takes time to do that stuff. And I understand that we just don't all have that kind of time. So enlist the help of brothers and sisters and husbands and other folks, volunteers, to help to make learning more engaging for your kids at home, and use the best techniques that you have seen to help to move your kids along, because it will be worth it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm just going to wrap up with that, because I don't think I can add anything that'll improve that at all. So I so appreciate that. And I so very much appreciate you coming on and sharing all that you shared today. And I will be sure to make sure that the readeezy.com is listed, and your email, how they can contact you, is listed. And I'll also put the website for the donations to the readeezy.com. I know it's on the website, but some people just want to go directly to one. So I'll make sure that both things are included in the chat messages. And thank you again so much for being here. It's been such a joy. I could talk to you all day.
I feel the same. It's been a delight to talk with you, Shelley. And I wish you well with all you're doing and the wonderful mission that you have in front of you. I'm sure that you have not only improved the lives of many, but that you will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you for those kind words. Bye, everybody. Join me next week. Bye-bye.
Now.
Hey, parents and teachers, are you tired of IEP meetings that feel like a battle? Let's put an end to the tension and create a collaborative, calm, and respectful environment together. Shelley Keno, your go-to IEP consultant, can transform your meetings into positive and productive experiences. With Shelley Keno, your child is her top priority, your voice is heard, and you become confident. Shelley Keno is making the world better for all, one IEP at a time. Visit www.shelleykeno.com for more information and set up your free 20-minute consultation today. That's shelleykeno.com, SHELLEYKENOW.